ladies and gentlemen, once again, I welcome you to our Uganda Diaspora show, the on Civic Space TV here. It is always on YouTube, but it's also on other channels on social media, all our social media platforms. You can join us and be part of the conversation. So we speak issues Ugandan diaspora. We speak issues that affect both home and away, and we try to make sure that everybody is included in these conversations. Today I'm really happy to report that we have a very interesting guest who is joining us for the first time. She's made headlines across the country. I'm sure those of you who follow news around, you know who I'm talking about, or you'll get to know and interact with her. I'm speaking to Claire Ollama, Ms. Claire Ollama. She is a registrar with NIRA, and she might tell us a little bit more about herself. But importantly, she's here to speak about the ongoing renewal and registration services that have been extended to Uganda diaspora. But before that, I welcome you, Albert Bakasara. I welcome you, Francis Kamuhanda, and we will be joined by National Unity Platform's US chapter, Karim Tambi. We're expecting also someone else is joining us for the first time from PLU US chapter. We'll dive into other conversations later on, but first I want us to handle the most important one right now, and that is identification. How is it going to happen abroad, in the US, in the Middle East, in the UK, and elsewhere? Claire, a very warm welcome to the show. Okay, did she run away from us or something?
Maybe she's muted.
Let me holler at her. But are you aware, in the meantime, as she maybe joins us, are you aware that NIRA has extended registration and renewal of IDs across the entire globe? So for Ugandans especially. Francis, quickly maybe before as she joins us, tell us what you know and what's probably happening elsewhere as we wait for her to join us.
Thank you, Lynn. Yes, when I visited the NIRA website, because I normally visit websites of different institutions in my country to know what is going on, I saw how, I think it was June 10th, how they had posted on the news, on their news section, how the president had endorsed that massive kind of identification renewal. But, you know, it is a good thing that that was endorsed and they launched it. But we always have questions. It is a good thing for sure. But we always have questions on is that the right procedure, how it should be done, or what would be the best way, so that we as the people in the diaspora and every other Ugandan is served equally. So yeah, for me, I still think that the lack of our institutions engaging with its people, the lack of civic education before even launching a well-intentioned program is done. That is what brings some kind of failure in as far as the implementation or reaching the number or reaching the target that they set to. I will give you an example. Like Bakasara is one of our community leaders here in the diaspora in the USA. But I don't know how much he's aware of that, or how much he has been contacted or consulted in as far as the input of how we can be served is concerned. Maybe if they did contact him and he has not yet maybe contacted me or given me some information, then I will follow Albert on that, and also any other structure. But only what we normally see is less engagement but announcements.
Right.
I have like a series of issues that I would want Claire maybe will respond to.
Mm.
The first one is it necessary that every time they want to extend services to the diaspora, they always have to make those expensive trips to come to DC in this era? Then number two, is it necessary that they will always first wait when they hear of a function organized by the diaspora, for example, the UNA convention or any other convention? It's when they come running. Then I would also like to know why. I do know how NIRA is communicating. When I was renewing my passport, I saw how they are very fast communicating with the Ministry of Internal Affairs and so on. But I was surprised that even when a child is born at the village level using a local birth attendant, why can't such a services be decentralized? If, for example, the chairman LC1 has an iPad, a child is born, and then the form is clear, the person just puts in the name, and then on a website, and then clicks, and then automatically the system will update that in village XY. I see forms. I normally see very well designed forms, but if they make them user friendly, so that would help us. Then, for example, in the diaspora, when we talk about the diaspora, which NIRA is aware of, like in the US, I will talk about the US. We have almost 52 states, but does coming and camping at Washington, DC, or going to a convention, is it a true representative of all Ugandans in the US? The answer is no. So why can't we certify, for example, one in each state, one person to have an iPad, so that people are aware in that state that we have maybe Albert who is certified. Anytime I can go there and then he fingerprints me. For example, that is the most important part that is needed. And in any case, anyways, why is it that in most cases there is when you are renewing something, but this was with the passport, and then like you are basically filling everything, and yet this would be, I will give an example of the US, just a single click, provide your social security number, US has everything about you. So they don't need to struggle that you are going, put the social security number, put the date of birth and your name, the rest they may even tell you stop there. So these are some of the things that like NIRA would have helped, by the way, even when we had this fracas of the express penalties on vehicles. Just why do you penalize a vehicle? Penalize the driver. NIRA would even turn that the moment I clock maybe how many years, it is tagged to the NIRA, and the police have a scanner. They will scan and penalize the driver. So there is a lot that we need to improve, and maybe it is already being done by Claire and the team. But as far as I know, I always visit their website. The latest news that you have, Claire, there is June 10th. So since then, there are no news that have ever happened, or you are always excited to only post Museveni. He has endorsed. No, some of these things are natural births. You tell us as if
Right.
if he doesn't will something, then it will not happen. Thank you.
Right, Francis, thank you very much. Claire, I'm glad you're here. Let's pick a couple of ideas here and there from the two, and then you can come in. Albert Bakasara, what say you? Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, yeah, I've unmuted now. Thank you so much, Lynn, and welcome, Claire. At some point, I was actually driving, but at some point when I put a nice parking spot here, I will put on my camera so Claire can see me, and then I'll take it off. So I do appreciate the vote of confidence that from Mr. Kamuhanda. I don't really consider myself a community leader. No one ever elected me to be a community leader. When I think of myself as a community volunteer, I've lived in this community for over 30 years. It's my community. Sometimes people wonder, why is Albert so fighting this and that, especially negative stuff that comes in our community? Because this is my community. Yes, I'm Ugandan, American. This is where I've lived for the last 30 years. So we do guard this community jealously. So yeah, so that's addressing Mr. Kamuhanda saying that the embassy or the NIRA people should contact me as a community leader. No, they don't have to contact me. They can solicit advice, and we usually give it. So to make sure, because if their intention is to serve this community, yeah, it's good to know what the community wants instead of jetting in and out, as Mr. Kamuhanda was saying. And I believe that's what Claire is here to enlighten us about. So I will not take much time. I'll just wait to hear what Claire has to say. And if there are questions, I'll bring them in at the end.
All right. Okay. Thank you, Albert. Thank you, Francis. Claire, you're welcome. And I was telling them that what I know is that you have been making rounds around the country. She has become a celebrity here because, well, she's amazing. I can only assure you of that. And she can tell us a little bit more about what she does. But what I know is that she's a registrar with NIRA. Claire, please, you're welcome.
Thank you very much, Lynn, for having me. It's an honor to always meet people like yourselves, demystify, listen to feedback, take it, and probably also use it as an opportunity to do better what we do. Because when you're offering a service that is a right, then you have to be intentional about listening, taking feedback, but also demystifying where you think that people maybe have not appreciated why you're using a particular approach. Yes, so like you said, I am a registrar with NIRA, and on this particular project, I am the champion for communication of this project. Rightly so, we have a PR department, but maybe because I speak over 13 dialects and listen to 4 more, so there is that element that because it's a country thing, I have my way about speaking to every region comfortably, and we want everyone to hear, understand, and if possible, let's meet them at their heart, because we want them to transition and take some form of action. Yeah, so I'm pleasantly happy to be here. Yes.
Right, Claire, thank you. And everybody was fascinated around the country, Albert and Francis, when she spoke all those dialects, trying to remind people to renew their IDs, and that's how she's taken the country by storm. Now, Claire, that you're here, I see NIRA has rolled out a program to extend registration and renewal services to Ugandans living in the diaspora, and it starts this month. Could you tell us a little bit more about this? Because we've had challenges, and I've had conversations with many diasporans, Ugandan diasporans, especially when it comes to renewal of IDs, registration for elections, all those things around involvement of the diaspora. Could you highlight how you came about this, how you're going to go about it, and are there mechanisms? Maybe the immigration department here in Uganda can, take lessons from you guys, and maybe extend also the passports and ABCD.
Right. Thank you very much. I think that the idea that passport that has been here from ages would take lessons for us is a bit of a tall order, but you see, learning is very funny. The Baganda have a saying that no that a baby can as well drum, and then an elder will be able to dance. So yes, learning is a continuous process. It's very interesting. But diaspora registration is at the heart of our delivery of this mass enrollment and renewal. Because, like you rightly know, the first IDs were issued in 2014. And therein, they were given a lifespan of 10 years. I'm very happy that Albert and Francis didn't query the idea of why the document is 10 years. That's pretty much testament to that when you move, you learn about international best practices. So it looks like you have a pretty good understanding of ICAO standards. and that expiry of a document is not tantamount to expiry of citizenship. But that said, our plan had been that we want to reach out to the diaspora. Of course, from the beginning, I need to say that we will not go to every country. We don't have the means, because honestly, we would want it very much so. But you see, if all wishes were horses, then beggars would ride. We don't have that ability to go everywhere, but we are committed to have a presence in every continent. And we also have been intentional about having continent liaison persons who look at the statistics from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Immigration to have a bit of an impression of how many Ugandans are in a particular locality and try to reach them and extend the service closer. It might not be at the doorstep, but the goal is to be closer. So like you rightly know, we released a program where we started off in the Middle East. And of course, the answer is simple. A couple of people, there was no rocket science. It's just because we reached out to so many embassies, and the Middle East people of Qatar were very quick to respond and define timelines. Of UK later on followed in, and the American people as well came through. So we are also moving to Australia probably next week. We should be starting something there next week. We hope to go to China, and as far possible. But depending on when the embassy locks in a date and an appointment, at that point, then we can confirm. Why? Because the embassy is our government that side. So we work with them to be able, first of all, to hand over us the visa and the diplomacy-related requests, and then be able to extend the service to you. So that's where we are standing, and that's how we are trying to reach people. So we'll not go to every country, but we will do a fair job. We'll try to go far and wide as much as we can. Yeah.
Right. Interesting. So every Ugandan, how do I identify? The other day there was a conversation, and we were part of the conversation
Yes.
about what makes one Ugandan these days. There's dual citizenship drama. There's all those things. So who is the target audience? Who qualifies?
Thank you very much. So the target audience is Ugandans, because a national identity card is proof of who is a citizen. When I made that statement, it's absurd that sometimes that people listen selectively and people like to quote people out of context. But I want to uphold that statement on this call and say that to the extent that you have traveled abroad and voluntarily chosen to apply for citizenship of another country, and that while applying the other side, you did not indicate that you wanted to be their dual citizen, then it means that you have lost your Ugandanness at that point of acquiring the other one. You can only say so if you applied, say, to America, to Finland, to Germany, and told them, I want to become a citizen here as a dual. Now, the truth of the matter is, after that call, a lot of people came to me on Twitter, on X, and said, but Claire, you know how things be. Like you're Ugandan, like you know how these things happen. We either went on asylum or running from war or got married or went in search of green pasture, and somehow we have become. So for a long time, many Ugandans thought by becoming the other, no one could take away their Ugandanness. Miguna scenario, you know that, the Kenyan who chose to go the other side and then remain. But the truth is you have lost it. And so our conversation across the diaspora, and I'm sure Albert has picked wind of this, or Francis, we are encouraging them that if you're on a hold of the other citizenship, we recognize you are born here, you're a child, you first went there, Ugandan passport, please pursue dual citizenship. It's an international accepted standard for people to be dual. So if you have abandoned Ugandans and you continue to move as an American and you become their citizen, to the extent that you've not applied for dual, then you're not a Ugandan, you're not the audience we are looking for. Surely not. Because our constitution has types. If you're no longer a citizen by birth and you've renounced it by choosing to acquire another without using the dual approach, then you're no longer a citizen. But if the country you're in does not confer citizenship to all your children that you have gotten from the other side, your children can actually get from their grandparent here. Because it is you who traveled, you renounced by choosing the other. But if that country does not give your children citizenship, our law is kind because it says citizenship can be got from either parent or grandparent. So now that Trump is becoming very hard with you, that you giving birth here does not give your child automatically, I don't know the science therein, grandparents can actually make. So it's possible to be an American and have a Ugandan child because they will pick from the grandparent. So we ask that you approach this process with integrity. Because there are consequences to uttering false information, which we don't want you to get into. And that's why we are trying to say, be honest with yourself. If you're no longer a Ugandan, but we are born a Ugandan, citizenship is not permanent. People renounce it day and night, either by choice or by ignorance. So if you had gotten the other one and you're ignorant that we are also very strict on dual, now make the time to go to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs portal, follow dual citizenship application and lodge your application to become a dual. That way then, once you have that certificate that recognizes you as both an American and Ugandan, both a German and a Ugandan, a Briton and Ugandan, we will then also give you a national ID. So audience is Ugandans that don't hold another citizenship or have dual citizenship. Yeah.
Perfect. Well put, well put. And the issue of dual citizenship, Francis, if you remember, we've had this conversation, and Albert, and encouraged most of our colleagues, most of our brothers and sisters in diaspora to take it up, especially because it is important. At the end of the day, home is Uganda. Claire, on that note, before I can get Francis and Albert to ask their questions, the question would be, the issue of pre-application on the NIRA website. Pre-application, could you elaborate a little bit about that?
Yes, before Albert comes in, he did raise a couple of questions that were very interesting for me, and I hope that before he comes in, probably I'll speak to
I think that's Francis. That's Francis.
Yeah, Francis did raise a couple of them. So as I answer those, probably I'll try to touch a few of the issues he raised. One, pre-registration is a platform where we are trying to leverage the power of the internet and its ability to ease access to service and process. So what happens on the pre-registration portal is we are saying, take the power into your hands, initiate your own application, put in your information as you'd want it to be, so you don't have to depend on a NIRA officer typing for you. You know, we have to inroad because Uganda has still got a very illiterate population. So at some point, there are people who will not initiate online in the villages or who don't even have internet connectivity in those localities where we are working offline and then accessing a network connected space to upload the data for the day. That is happening. So you initiate the application, but you must complete it by going to enrollment station so that your biometrics and your image have got to be captured. And that brings us to an element that he asked and said, but if someone has a smartphone, why aren't we putting this whole process online? And Francis, I put it to you. You know very well that in America, to be naturalized, you have to walk in for some form of interview at some point, even when you initiate the process online. I know that too well. I also know very well that even when you have these green card applications and they're approved, or resident permits, you walk in some point for biometric capture and for a picture to be taken. And I know Americans have the best cameras, not even comparative to our Technos here or our iPhones that have another quality. But the citizenship process is one that is rigorous in its own way, that requires some level of interviewing and verification. And some of those things you don't meet until you have met. So it's true. It's not true that in America, the whole process is in line. Even them for their verification process to naturalize you, even for them to give you some of those reasons, at some point you went in for a first interview, and sometimes they took your biometrics in a secure location and took your pictures, but because they were also hell-bent on quality. So we are leveraging internet, but also we are saying that things that need to be done in a secure environment are done in a secure environment. Of course, the future is that after you've done that one-time visit, we are hoping, like the minister said on the floor of parliament, for a mechanism that may not allow repeat or unnecessary visits. Now, this time, whereas we had the choice to say, okay, those who had IDs do not come back to the station, apply for a renewal online, we are still saying come back because we introduced a new biometric feature which is the iris, okay? And like we say, that one first time improved element that we are doing, we need to do it in a secure location. And then subsequently, when we have the first picture that we took in an environment we trust, and in that place, you can now subsequently do others later. So that is the future. We are cognizant that technology is here and we can no longer work manually. So that's where we are looking to. So just to allay your fears, we hear this, we've had it, and we're very committed to embracing technology as much as we can, to the extent that it does not compromise our citizenship verification process. Now, you asked also why DC? Why are we even coming? I think this answer I just gave is intertwined with what I just mentioned. So now you know why we are coming. But this is the good news. All passport registration centers also remain national ID registration centers. So rest assured, when we go there, one of the deliverables is that our team will train the embassy staff on this new technology, that they'll learn to do it, that even after we have left, people can access this service at the registration points. So we'll leave the kits there and come. Why we are coming now is because it's a mass. So we want to try and comb as much as possible so that even when we leave the backlog, it's something that they can continue to manage. And I know you speak of 52 states. And like I said, if all wishes were horses, beggars would ride. But you want to agree with me, NIRA has been to US in the past 3 years or so, and they have been moving from different states. We are keen not to repeat where we have been. Now we are going to New Orleans. We've not done New Orleans before, did we? We didn't. So you try to see that we are cognizant that where we have been, maybe we don't go there. We try a new locality. And we are speaking with the embassy. We are speaking with the UNA. Who are your leaders? I don't know if you don't trust the leaders in UNA because we think you vote those. And it's a good representation of the Ugandan community. The UNA president actually did send me a message saying, Claire, I'm in line. I have already posted and shared. Well, wait. So if you still have a way that you want me to take from here as an actionable point on what more we can do, I'm happy to take that feedback. And then on means, you're saying when EPS came where was NIN, a journey of 10,000 miles begins with one step. But this is the good news I want to bring to your attention. As of this year, we are not going to have PIN anymore. Tax identification number. It's now national identification number. Why? We are saying if the business is owned by you individually or you're the one who registered it, at the end of the day, you're the same person. And I've been telling Ugandans, just because we've changed your TIN to now say it reads your name, if a lily flower was called by any other name, would it cease to be a lily? So just because today I'm Claire and I changed my name to Carol, do I cease to be the same Claire? So that's what we are driving at, that your NIN will be the single document, the unique identifier that should carry through. That's why now without a NIN, no passport. Without a NIN, you can't register for tax. Without a NIN, you can't get a driving license. Why? So when you change your age and you want to get a permit of a higher class, now you can't because your NIN will report you that you're lying about your age and you want to access a class that's yours. So the good news for you is we are already on this. You can't access a bank account without a TIN. You can't access a... So in brief, very soon your NIN will be your everything. Like with your NIN, every other fact about you is consolidated. That's why we call it a foundational register upon which all other subsequent registrations in this country, from the banking sector to the telecom sector to the SIM cards, will be best. Yes. So I hope that I've spoken to many of the issues that he did raise. So we are not coming for UNA only, sir. Even without UNA, we're going to come. I'm going to UAE. My going to the UAE has nothing to do with what is happening there. People are in Qatar. Is there conversion there that I know not of? No. Maybe it's a beautiful serendipity that whenever we are coming, UNA is there, or UNA loves us enough to say, if there is something special, do you come over? But we don't like to spend resources that much. Our commitment is embassy staff learn and carry this job forward so we don't have to keep coming. Yes. Thank you.
Wow. Well, Claire, thank you so much. There's another question that I'm itching to ask, but I want Francis and Albert to first, ask their questions, and then I'll ask that question. Francis, are you going first or Albert? Albert, I think you should go first. Francis had his share.
Thank you so much, Lynn. As I promised, I'll put on my camera so I can say hi to...
Albert, you're muted.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, let's go.
Okay, sorry about that. So I wanted to put on my camera and then I realized, okay, sorry about that. So Claire, nice meeting you. I can see why you're a celebrity, and this is really exciting. Where have they been keeping you? But welcome, welcome. As Lynn said, my name is Albert Bakasara. I live here in the Washington, D.C. area. I don't have a good background. I'm just parked at a gas station here, beginning my Saturday errands. But welcome, and I hope to see you in person if you're coming as part of the delegation that will be in D.C. Thank you. So I'll take off my camera and then address Lynn's question. I will start by actually addressing, I know you are a civil servant and maybe not a lawyer, or maybe, but there's still some gaps that even you technocrats are still going to navigate to make people in the diaspora understand this process, especially when it comes to the target audience, as you mentioned it. For example, it has always been, at least from bureaucrats from Kampala, and I'm not using that word disparagingly, but they've always said, oh, once you renounce the Ugandan citizenship by picking up another citizenship, you're no longer Ugandan. I did that. I put my hand up, I swore allegiance to the US, and I became a citizen of the US. And then that makes sense that when I come to Uganda, if I want to be a Ugandan, I do dual citizenship, which is a very good process, by the way, and I give NIRA credit because I've seen the process firsthand. Professional, done on time, everything smooth. Actually, even less cumbersome than the US process. So in that one, Claire, you're right. But now here's the question. My children have never renounced Ugandan citizenship. So are they Ugandan? Because I'm a dual citizenship of Uganda. Their grandparents are clearly Ugandan. And they have never renounced Ugandan citizenship. Because they were born as American citizens. But they're also Ugandan. So that gap has never really been filled, and they've never really found an official to explain that, or that gap in the law, or how it's going to be covered. So it's okay for people to be confused about that. On the process, I appreciate you in the process of saying when you come here, you will train the embassy staff and leave those machines. And I agree with you. These are steps, and you're learning as go along, and you're also civil servant. Some of these things have to be addressed in parliament or in administrative structures that are probably where you're not having an input, you're just implementing. I appreciate that. I do want to give a nuance about UNA. UNA in Uganda looks as a representative organization for people in the US, and I think Francis Kamuhanda mentioned this earlier by saying, hey, reach out to community leaders. Believe it or not, UNA is not a representative of the Ugandan community in the US. So I will encourage you to expand your reach to other community organizations. And we're all Ugandans. For example, as we speak, NUP is having a convention in Boston. Go there. They're Ugandans. I bet you, if that was an NRM convention, NIRA would be there. So don't just discard Ugandans because somehow they have a different political belief. And I'm not saying you as Claire, I'm saying you plural. So reach out, because like I said, and I say that as having been served in UNA. It was a representative for my area, I was a deputy speaker for the organization. So I'm very familiar with the workings of UNA. But it's hardly a representative of Ugandans in North America. Hardly. Potentially it could have been, and at some point maybe it was, but not anymore. I mean, you will have 1,000 people who as the captured audience in one of the convention halls, or 800, and that's fine. And you should reach out to those people, but they're not a representative of Ugandans in the US. And as far as these are the elected people, no, that horse left the crowd a long time ago. they do not have any democratic structures that actually put up an election that can elect true representatives of Ugandans in the US. I know you'll be in New Orleans and you will see for yourself that every UNA position, I think this year, maybe except for one, no one is even bothering to contest. Now, if this was a representative of Ugandan community, you know us for real. Do you really think you'll have every position in UNA uncontested? No, that's a sign of people saying, you know what, you guys can have your, they gave up on the organization. So if this is going to be an effective exercise, I would encourage you to reach out to other community organizations. There's a big convention with Buganda Bumu, the Torah American Association, Claire may not know, but I was the founding chairman. They will have a convention in Dallas next year. The Banyachigezi have a convention. Reach out to these organizations. Reach out to people who are really genuinely trying to serve their communities. Don't be boxed in the narrative that somehow you went to UNA, therefore you've reached an organization that is representative of Ugandans in North America. Potentially, yes, but not at the moment. Yeah, I think I'll stop there for a moment. Again, I appreciate you, Claire, and I appreciate the efforts you're making. And yes, earlier to Kamuhanda's question, Jole Bakwenga did reach out to me, but never gave me information to share with the community. She just said, hey, there will be a team here, and at some point when we have information to disseminate, we'll reach out to you. So that was done. But as far as giving me information to share with the community, obviously if I got it, I would share it, and you know that, Francis. So thank you. I'll stop there, Lynn.
All right. Thank you, Albert, for that. Francis?
Thank you, Lynn and Claire. And I'm glad to, I have listened to clips of Claire speaking eloquently, series of language. So I don't doubt that he's heading the communication department. And Claire, we are Ugandans and we love Uganda. I always see how Bakasara passionately speaks about Uganda, and even like, I don't know, every other year or not minute, if he had a personal jet, he would always be in Uganda. That would show, regardless of whether he's a dual citizen or not, but at least you see that, and you read that in our voices when we are trying to speak. And therefore, I will emphasize that Bakasara told you that he's a volunteer community. I don't know whether member, but I still consider him as a leader because I know his potential and what he has done for the Ugandan community and beyond, and what we can leverage from his extensive experience in as far as the community is concerned to achieve the greater good for all Ugandans. Having said that, Claire, there is a tendency of some institutions, if not all institutions of Uganda, to service providing institutions, have been captured in one war or the other. That instead of serving Uganda, they are serving the interests of a particular patronage group or a particular group. And I know right now it may not catch up with the NIRA, but as NIRA stabilizes, it is going to take root, and that is always our fear. And as we say, as Bakasara said, it is important for you to understand, or the institution to understand, the dynamics within the diaspora. Now, once we understand that, then you will be in position to reach the population that you need, so that you don't risk to have what Kasori in 1919, during the Versailles Peace Treaty, what he said, that it is a huge sounding nothing, so that you don't risk taking that route. So it means, therefore, that we appreciate what you are doing, but again, we appreciate these conversations, like to always have them, and we ensure that we can give in our input to streamline the process, and it becomes seamless and even much easier for you. You talked about pre-training. I agree with it, but carrying it forward, I think that's where we normally have issues. And I do really re-emphasize. I know you talked about resources. I agree, but this comes with the pre-planning. It is equally like when I talked about the number of states in where we are. It is equally like the district. The districts in Uganda, that much as a person can go and appear in person, but you think of a person moving from Fort Potro, another one from Rupunjiri, another one from Kaberamaido, another one from Guru, they are all coming to converge. If resources are available, they are all coming to converge at NIRA headquarters in Kampala. It would be impossible for you then to serve all those millions of people. That's why I still emphasize that in your planning, you should still think of how do we have, I don't know whether I should call them satellite centers, or you can give the authority to the embassy that once you have trained them, then they can see how they bring the services nearer to the people who are in the diaspora in the different locations. But I know it is a process, like as you've said, like baby steps to get there, but that should be in the plan. I don't want you to risk, like I always give an example of National Road Authority. Even where you reach, there is a national park. It is government land. The road reserve is 3 feet. Well, there would expect that the road reserve, even you can show there may be 5 meters. And you say that there is some planning. When they reach here, they can even put 3 lanes and so on. So that's the context under which I'm bringing it to say that no, there should be pre-planning and then information flow. That like I heard of this, the gear in because of the new the UNA convention. That's when we were feeling they are coming. Yeah, but it should be something that we should have these engagements. And for sure, I still emphasize, if you want to meet community leaders of people in the diaspora, those community leaders are there. And I also appreciate like what the intention of this whole exercise, and then how everything is going to be interconnected. But the problem is, you do appreciate that these are baby steps. But in Uganda, in most cases, you are aware that there is always a lot of road accidents. Even in service provision, you move at a reckless speed, which sometimes you can't even control. So there are people who may currently go even before things have been enrolled completely, and then you give them an unnecessary headache. Like, for example, I have not yet renewed my national ID, but I was going round and round with the bank in Uganda, and they say, oh, your ID expired and so on, then we can't do this and so on. So some of these things, there must be some flexibility. Otherwise, renewing my national ID is not my fault, was not my fault. That's where government should come in and accept. That is the flexibility that we need. If Bakasara has decided that, okay, I need to acquire an asset and expand and do this, I understand, yes, maybe he's not yet a dual citizen, but we all know him, that he's thinking about Uganda. How can I come back to our country? There should be a mechanism before maybe he does the process or before he renews his ID and so on. But otherwise, so many things are confused in one and rigged, and yet we know that the service cannot reach everyone. at the same time? Because if I ask, I was reading a form where there are some mistakes that were made during the first ID, when you were giving out the IDs. But I was looking at the form for, I think, correcting, but it doesn't have you are correcting from what to what, or what is the problem on this ID. But it is as if they are only talking about those that were damaged, those and so on and so forth. So such a thing should be clear. There is when, you know, during that exercise, there are some of this, I'm not underestimating. You find the people who are registering because of the line misspells the name. Maybe the person is Biamugisha and then the person forgets an S somewhere. But then, of course, this name has to be corrected. But then it is important. This is what. And for me, I still also believe that if it was, I have not seen an edited form that is live. I can go there and like write in it. The forms that you have a PDF, I have either download, fill, and then scan and then upload where necessary. So I think some of these things need to come out clearly so that we know that we get it. Then Bakasara talked about a very important point, and also Claire talked about it, that a child can become a citizen of Uganda either through the grandparents, even if the parent denounced. Children may need that, for me, my roots are in Uganda, so I'm a Ugandan. But the question is, what are you doing about that? Is it just a matter of writing and putting it there in writing, or it is an issue of mobilization? For those who have children like Albert here, Claire, let me tell you, there is a lot of potential. Anything that you may need, whether petroleum engineers, whether the talent is here, but it would be a deliberate act for government to tap into these Ugandans who are not born there and to see that they can happily go back home, or they can partly associate with home. But what do we mean by ensuring that there is infrastructure that is well laid? It could be public relations and so on and so forth. But it's as if the deliberate government effort, you are not a politician, I know, and I'm sorry to drag you into politics, as if it is a deliberate act also by government to ensure that those who are there lock the door completely, and also but it is important that we have these conversations, otherwise there is a lot that we are losing. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Francis. Claire, as you prepare to come in, two questions come to mind. One is why now? I mean, we're in a political season, and don't get me wrong, there are people who think that way, and I'm their voice right now. Why now? Is it because you're targeting maybe the diaspora vote? That is one. Two, what about, are you extending the same training as you mentioned for the consulates and the embassies to the electoral commission as well, maybe to involve the diaspora come into the voting and all those things? So those are some of the questions that come to mind and I have encountered, and I hope you can address them. Francis, worry not, we're going to go into some bit of politics a little bit before we let Claire go.
All right. Thank you very much. I love the genuine spirit of patriotism that is continuing to come through. But of course, like you rightly say, as a public servant, I must be apolitical because I offer a service. I normally tell people the national ID is such a good a good service to offer, because it's the one service that does not care what you believe. It does not care about how you think. I normally even throw a joke and say, even when someone is a lumpen, they are such a drunkard, they're important to me because it's a right to have an identity, and I'm supposed to hold their hand so that they'll be unique. But also, whether they want to agree with whatever is happening or to disagree, I also give them the document that certifies they're Ugandan, and therefore they can rightfully participate in this process. to start with the last question, one of the mandates under NIRA is that one of the services that will be based or premised upon having a national identification document is voting. Because you see what the ID does, it's foundational and it makes you unique. However, there are many people who normally ask questions and say, but we're registering everybody. Then in explaining gains, we must not forget that the benefits of this wonderful service to the minors cannot be the same for other people. Our law is clear between who is a child and who is a minor. The law is further clear on who qualifies to access which service or otherwise. Now, by saying let's base this process on NIN, we are trying to say, tell me who this person is uniquely without duplicating them with another human using their unique biometrics, but also help me understand if they're 18 years of age. So when what goes to the voter register is purely people who are 18 and above. So to allay your fears and to comfort our viewers, this registration has nothing to do with that. The Electoral Commission in February had a voter register update where they said that if you are in Kampala and now you want to vote from Gulu, please go and update the voter register and move to that location. We also thought that in that exercise, whoever is of voting age and had not previously obtained a NIN, working together with Electoral Commission, we took kits to every parish to ask all Ugandans who wanted to participate in the voting to come and register by a particular date. Because this is an electoral map, so it has days between which you can cut off to allow planning. Okay, so by that date. And after that, they also came back with the feedback and did a voter register display where you are supposed to come, but we are registered, my name is not there. So that we know the omissions, we also know the irregular additions. And I think that went. So if you're viewing us, whereas the national ID is at the heart of supporting your voter right, it has nothing to do with why we are doing this now. Now, on the issue of whether people in diaspora will vote, I don't want to pronounce myself on that one because it is beyond my mandate. I think you'd have Julius Muchunguzi from Electoral Commission come and explain how they hope to do that. But I'm excited to also hear how things roll out in that space. Yeah, so that's why we are doing that. And I've learned painfully, but also with surprise about UNA, but that also does not shock me too much because organizations, sometimes, if they are not intentional, could also wither away. Because not all the NGOs that we knew when we were growing, Straight Talk was a big thing when I'm growing. These days, I struggle to hear about it. I don't know where they are, but those days, if you were a young person who wanted to know about protected sex, they were the only people saying it in that day and era. It sounded like an abomination. So it looked like it was a go-to place for information for young people. Are they still a go-to place for information for young people? I don't know. But today, the take-home that I'm taking for me as a person who is championing and mobilizing Ugandans is that now he has introduced me. I know about them. I know that Boston has a very strong Catholic community that has a way of pulling people for the Uganda Matters celebrations from states far and wide. They meet there. So I appreciate that feedback. And I hope that Lina, through you, if they would share some of those insights and the leaders, honestly, it doesn't kill to connect contact. Because all I want is that every Ugandan at whatever ends of the world shall hear this word. And after hearing this word will be empowered to know how and where to access this service. So for me on this one, I'm very thankful. And I think that's another reason plus why I came to this call. So you see, I have something to take home away from here. And in terms of children, now, the Ugandan law says that a person shall make a declaration of dual citizenship at 18 years. That's when you make it. So for me, as clear, if your child is born, and maybe you're an American, you are at leisure to register that child as a citizen of Uganda if they pick that from their grandparent. Because the law says a citizen by birth is a person whose one parent or grandparent. And when I started this call, I said it is not strange to have a child born to, my friend has a child born to a Sierra Leone man who now is deceased painfully, and herself she has since become a South Sudanese. Now, South Sudan does not allow dual, but for some reason she obtained that, so she forfeited Ugandanese. But her child is a Ugandan, via her parents. and that child is a holder of a passport, and I registered that child personally because she came and people were giving her a bit of headache. How? The father is Sierra Leone and the mother is South Sudanese. Where is your child? And I said, come on over. This is the law. Article 10 of the Constitution, what does it say? A citizen by birth is one whose one parent or grandparent is a citizen by birth. So lots of you American people are coming, and rightly so. And when we talk of grandparent, it means the person that's conferring citizenship can be anybody from the lineage of the maternal grandparents, both of them, by the way, or the paternal grandparent. So your child actually, much as you're Mutoro or Munyankore, can actually be an Acholi if one of your maternal grandparents was an Acholi. So the child is Kamujisha, but actually then associates as an Acholi if, say, it's that grandmother of yours was from Palabek that conferred citizenship. Very normal. And that's why I'm saying there's a lot of demystifying, and once we appreciate the law in this angle, we'll then stop saying how is Ollama Munyankore. What we need is the family tree, a career trail, and I like to say that citizen by birth is descent. You pick it from someone. It's your gift that you carry forward from anybody, from your grandparents and people therein. Yeah. So that's what I want to say. So just to comfort you when we come, your children are Ugandan, and rightly so, please. So when they turn 18 years, your children, via your American citizenship, can then choose to make that declaration and say, we are now both Ugandans and Americans. Our law says you can only do that dual declaration at 18 years of age. I hope that brings clarity. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes,
Thank you, Claire, for that. If there are any other questions, please bring them to the fore. And before I let Claire go.
Yeah, well, just one. And thank you for that clarification, Claire. So, and maybe you can echo what he just said at the end, because I thought it was clear, and then you made a statement at the end. So, my children now Ugandan, and until or when they choose to declare at 18? Because again, the caveat is, I renounced Ugandan citizenship when it took over on American citizenship, but they did not. They were born here. They didn't have a choice on whether becoming Ugandan or American. They were born here, and the U.S. does not have a law that requires people to declare that they're dual citizen. It actually does not. So there has never been that declaration. So you said they can make a dual declaration. Why should they at 18? And until they're 18, are they Ugandan? So that's one. The other part, and this is another, and I'm thankful that you did not know some of the dynamics in these communities, and I appreciate that you're going to actually take that and work on it. Like I said, right now as we speak, there's Ugandans, about 500 Ugandans in the greater Boston area that are attending a NUP convention. A speech like this or something like this, you could have been on the internet in Kampala and they put you on screen and you give this information, and that's fine, since you said you are apolitical and you don't care about their politics. You just come in and give that, then the people would have that information. So I appreciate that, and if you're willing to work on that, like I said, expand beyond UNA. So the other part I want to give, or some advice I would like to give, is do consider some flexibilities. I know Francis talked about this, and you said you're looking at best practices all over the world. Yeah, and which is important because we don't have to reinvent the wheel. The best practice that I have seen, and I wonder if it's working the same way for IDs, the one that I have seen is for dual citizenship, where people apply and then they get approved. It's like a conditional approval, and you can talk more about this. This is your expertise. You can talk more about this. So when they get approved, but they have to do fingerprinting at some point in Kampala. I think they give you an approval for a year or maybe a year and a half. I can't remember now. But in that time, if you travel to Kampala, and that Kampala now could be the embassy, where they can actually take fingerprints and do biometrics and other information, do the interview that you mentioned in the beginning, then they issue the certificate. So is the ID, this registration, working the same way? Because if it is, that's a good thing. If it's not, then that needs to change, because you don't expect people to come like how the process is right now. They come, they apply, and they do fingerprints and everything, and then they go. And then the IDs come, and the embassy says, oh, your IDs have come. Now somebody has to come back to pick up the ID. If you're living in California, that's $600 the first time, plus hotel or anything if you don't have family in the area. And then that's another same expense to come pick up your ID. So if it was pre-approved, like how NIRA does the dual citizenship certificates, then someone will choose in that 1 year, maybe they have a wedding in the area or somewhere else, some other reason why they need to be in Washington, D.C. And they say, you know what? I'll kill two birds with one stone and go to the embassy, do my biometrics, and pick up my certificate. Or if somebody is coming to Uganda, maybe under happy wedding or maybe a funeral or sad occasion, and they say, you know what? I'll do that when I'm in Uganda. So they don't have to make 2 trips. So that's the advice I'm giving. And also, similarly, and I know you know this, but I'm not sure why Uganda has insisted that everyone, an ID is the only way you can identify yourself as a Ugandan. There's a dual citizenship certificates that you guys are giving in that go through the same rigorous process. There's a passport that does the same thing, but it seems like you cannot do any business until somebody has an ID. But I'm wondering, an ID, our way of understanding an ID, it's a personal identification, as you said, unique. Why can't the passport suffice in me doing transactions in Uganda if I wanted to? Why can't I open a bank account with a passport? Why can't I, if I'm a dual citizen, why can't I put down my dual citizen certificate and say, this is me, what is this obsession with the ID? And you might not be able to answer this. Like I said, you're a civil servant. I know how civil service works. But those are some of the things that maybe you can advocate for us, because it does not make sense that the only ID is that little square plastic card. An ID is something to show that I'm a Ugandan. If I have a passport and it's valid, it's an ID. And you said you're looking at best practices. Well, that's one of the best practices here. As a matter of fact, on most of government forms, when they're asking you to do something, they ask you, provide one of these. If you have a driver's license, it suffices. If you have a passport, it suffices. If you have a voter card, it suffices. Because all those were gotten through the same rigorous process. I'll stop there, and I know Lynn, you're pressed for time. Thank you so much, Claire.
Thank you, Albert. Francis, anything that has come up? I feel like you've been really answered.
Yes, I have been answered, but again, I will reemphasize, we all agree that...
Francis, speak to NIRA, not politics.
Yes, I'm not speaking politics. But I'm saying one determines the other, because NIRA is not operating in a vacuum. It is operating under leadership. But I will not take that route. I understand the environment under which they are operating. But this is what I would say. I will go back again to the point of the children and then those who have denounced, let's say, citizenship of whatever reasons, and Bakasara has talked about it. But I have this to suggest, Claire, that number one, we can all agree that we are losing an opportunity. Maybe if Albert is not here tomorrow, then his children may never and ever at any one time associate with Uganda. But to me, that would be a missed opportunity. Now, if for some reason, as a parent, I have denounced whether citizenship and so on, but for purposes, I know you are doing all this registration and so on, for purposes, the sole aim is to ensure how does Uganda move forward, not so? That is the basic I can say. Therefore, there should be some best practices that we should do. Number one, building trust and a welcoming environment is something very important. Yes, you may be doing your work, Claire, very well, but it should inform the political heads at home that you are making our work very complicated, because we have to build an environment that is welcoming and trusting. That is key. But every time the environment is not welcoming, it makes your work very complicated. That Claire, you may come and and I say, why this time I'm not going to meet her? Maybe she has been compromised. Such a thing, that is human nature. You will not stop it. And most especially if the environment is a little bit fragile in terms of status. And that's why I was saying that it is deliberate. You will have to come, you may be talking to me, but maybe next time you may say, oh, leaders, I want to talk to the young people, regardless of whether they are 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, and 6 years. I have a friend, when we were in Michigan, the child was 3 years old. And at school, they told the child that here in Kalamazoo, we have the Kalamazoo promise. Once you study from Kalamazoo and you finish your high school, college will be paid free. You will not pay. So every time my friend would get a job to want to move out of Kalamazoo, the child would say, don't dare, daddy. I'm going to miss on Kalamazoo promise. Okay, where is the Ugandan promise to this child of Bakasara that now will always proudly tell people that for me, even if I'm an American, but I'm a Ugandan, I should not miss the opportunity of being a Ugandan or going to Uganda. So that is building the trust and welcoming environment. Institutions should have that commitment. Number two, the culture of connection and identity, which we are trying or we have built here. That's why Bakasara was talking about the different organizations and so on, that you don't only confine yourself to the purported structures that you hear of, but to go to the local community and know, is there the Torah Association? Is there the West Nile Association? Is there the Banyakigezi? Is there the Catholics in the DMV? And so on and so forth. How do I get to these communities? I think that is important. And then lastly, opportunities for engagement based on skills. So, for example, have maybe the government or yourself, maybe there could be a camp to call the Ugandans who are gurus, young Ugandans who are born here, who are gurus in IT. And maybe they come to Uganda and you interact with them and so on. So I think some of these things can be able to help us than waiting on one-time events. And then it's good you talked about going to the Middle East. That has always been at my heart. That for sure, how do our children suffer in the Middle East? They were exiting the airport, and yet NIRA would be, I know it is not your responsibility, but sharing information that as this child was exiting, or this youth was exiting at the airport, we already know that so many Ugandans have gone to UAE. And even when we hear a problem, we can even trace that this is the NIN number of this person, this is their passport number or whatever, and then either we need them back. I think once you do that, some of these things I think you are in the right trajectory. And I hope everything will work if there is no interference on arm twisting. And you talked about the voters register. That's what we have been asking for. The voters register should not be generated by the Electoral Commission. It should be NIRA, because you have all our information, who is 18, who has turned 18, to say now this is the voters register. And we have it. Or it is on your website. I can go there and know how many voters are there. Then maybe we have a command team to go and play. Tinka Simira was saying that even you find the head votes, the BAMs vote, and and so on, so that we know who is who and who is voting. Those were words of NRM, and they are all they were just flashing.
Okay.
That's what.
Okay. Okay, Francis, please, Claire, take it away.
All right. Thank you very much. This has been a very insightful conversation. Yes. Luckily, maybe because I'm a bit of a liberal thinker. I hear you very much. So, Albert asked a question and said, so now what citizenship do his children hold? Because America is silent on the matter of dual citizenship for children. Now, the silence of America is a thing I cannot speak about, but what I'll tell you confidently is about Ugandan. But this is what I see in practice. And rightly so, like you say, we can bring to light any further lacunas that are there. If children are born and therefore identified as Americans already, so therefore American passport holders and therefore American ID holders, so when they come to Uganda, they rightly come in as American. So whereas they have a free gift that society has bequeathed to them of citizenship by birth, but they already have another. So that means that many times they will be either on a residence permit. There's an arrangement that immigration has that allows them to work until they're 18, when their declaration by way of the certificate can be locked in. Okay, because that's ours. Like ours says that they can only do that declaration later. But in the event that when they are born in America and you've not yet given them American citizenship and they have birth certificates that show they are born in America, you can make the choice to process for them a Ugandan NIN and birth certificate and Ugandan citizenship because they belong to that one. Okay, because they rightly belong to that one. Yeah. So they can get that. So the choice is in your hands as a parent. That's what I would say. That choice is yours as a parent. We are happy to give them citizenship, Ugandan passports, because birth is an event. It is recorded where it happens. If today, Claire, I'm going to Middle East and I am expectant and I have the baby from Al-Qaima in the line, when I register my child for NIN, I will indicate the place of birth as Al-Qaima and my residence as Kampala, where I stay, and my origin, and the child will be a citizen. So birth is an event. Where you're born has nothing to do with your citizenship. That's why we are saying we know very many noteworthy Ugandans of this country, whom I'll not mention, who are born outside this country, but because of our definition of citizenship by descent, are rightly Ugandan. So where you're born is an event. It doesn't matter. It is recorded where it is. The choice of citizenship is what you, the parent, make. And say, Albert, for me, I want them to remain Ugandan, so you process Ugandan documents. We indicate that they were born in America to an American father, okay, but who are citizens because of the grandmother. Then when they turn 18, you do the dual declaration and they can be holder of both passports freely. So that choice is in your hands. Please do make that choice. I will not make it for you. You know what's best for your children. But rest assured, let's trust the spirit of the Constitution that it's cognizant that there are many Ugandans who have gone in search of green pastures, who have an open window to take back their citizenship, to still own a part of their country. And that window is open and easily accessible. You raised a question around why aren't other IDs being respected? You will agree that in the past we had a passport opening an account, we had a permit opening an account. But you and I know that these systems were working in silos. They were not interconnected. It was possible for someone to have a passport saying 1984 and a permit saying 1970. So the documents were not connected. Now, the spirit of the national ID is to create a foundational register upon which the access of all other services will be premised. So even if you hold a passport now, a Ugandan one, and you come to renew it, they will ask you for your NIN. They will not renew it without a NIN unless you are sending it to renew it by postage. For example, you are unable to come, so you submit the documents and post them, okay, abroad. But now, even in countries where we have registration centers, as NIRA registration centers, we are also saying, even when you're in America, go to DC. In DC, there is also registration for ID happening. As much as possible, we are trying to lock all the gaps and only renewing documents without NIN in special cases where the exceptions that the person cannot access an ID for reasons that cannot be managed. But now we are locking in a process and saying that's what management is, that you forecast, you plan, you process. We are trying to be systematic. So why a national ID? First of all, is what the law says, that the foundation identification document shall be a national ID. And then after that, you will obtain a NIN. Francis, I don't know how you have that and then you renounced Ugandanness. That's a bizarre situation. But that said, that is the process. So subsequently, all passports have a NIN. All driving permits have a NIN. So everywhere else you're registered, even to marry your loved one, you need a NIN. Even to pay tax, you need a NIN. So it's foundational. Why? Because we are saying it's what sets you apart as Ugandan. Okay? It's what sets you apart as Ugandan, and that's what the law says. But also, it eases your access. Can you imagine how to get a bank account? You just swipe your national ID and that is done. To go to passport, the president has said in executive order, you shall no longer ask for any other data. As long as someone presents a national ID, it should be enough and sufficient to help you access a passport. So the goal is that once you have an ID, all other subsequent access should be easy. Finally, on the request for change of particulars, I shared in the chat a document. And I want the diaspora community to know, if you have your original form with which you applied for national ID, and NIRA gave you a document that has an error, all corrections when we come are free. But if you want to change and the error was not occasioned by NIRA, how do we know? We keep those forms for posterity purposes. We will retrieve that form, look at it with you, and determine whether it was a NIRA error or not. If it was not a NIRA error, I've shared with you in the charter document that has full detail of change of particulars. I want to apologize to Francis. Our website had a mixed up on the form for change of particulars, but last week I edited that website myself. And now the rightful form is there. Initially, we had used the service provider who built our portal. So he had put a replacement form under request for change. We have amended that. And right now, if you check on our forms, every form of NIRA is there. On the issue of transport, that moving in between and where you pick the forms, one of the forms on that portal when you go is issuance by proxy. That when your card is ready, of course, it's not a sustainable solution. The sustainable will be to be able to post it to you like immigration does or something. But for now, better half a loaf than none. You can delegate the collection of your card through a person who is proxy, and that person will then dispatch it to you. Go to our website, download the issuance by proxy form, fill in the details of who you're delegating to, and with that form in hand, you can post it to the person or email it to them. They'll use your instruction email and that signed form to pick your card on your behalf, and they can post it to you. So until we get to the place where you can initiate and post on the website, we have a bridge mechanism that allows you not to travel those kilometers. You can ask someone to pick up for you by authority of email and that form, and they can dispatch to you. Finally, in terms of what promises the government gives, I think that we are not where we want to be, but we are doing better. With the national ID standardizing, the very fact that we are Ugandans, it simply does one thing. It evens out and says, okay, all of us are Ugandans. Now we have given you wings, you fly. If you want to compete an election, you are a Ugandan and it's clear, you meet the age requirement. Please go on, engage in politics if you want to. We are saying with your national ID, you qualify for government sponsorship competitively. Without an ID, you'll not compete because we don't know whether you qualify for government sponsorship or not. So there are so many gains and perks relating for benefits that you get when you're unique that you would not. Imagine a child raped at 15. How will they prove they are 15 if they don't have a birth certificate indicating the NIN and confirming their age? You know, lose that case. Child marriages. I think that an ID is a tool that protects them because it confirms your age, it confirms your identity, but also it makes easy access for protection documents and tools. So I think let's embrace it. It's not where we are, but we are open to feedback. And that's why people might say, where do you get the time, Claire? But I spend an hour in the morning to tweet back and forth and TikTok. And then I do that also at close of day for 1 hour. For me, the point is, we want to hear what people are saying. And national ID, I told you, is not about party, about creed, about belief. The bare minimum is that you're Ugandan, it's your right, you must accept it. And for us to deliver that service to you, it requires that we will listen, we will answer, okay? And we will not tire and we will not relent until every Ugandan has a unique identity. Yeah, thank you.
All right, Claire, thank you so much. You've been so so detailed and so elaborate, and I hope that most of our viewers, and we shall share definitely this and so much more, will definitely be part of this conversation and know what they have to do, how to get their NINs, and how important it is. Francis in the chat room says, I have a passport with a NIN number therein. Why have a separate ID? Well, Francis, I'm sure Claire has answered that really.
I did.
And we're running out of time. I thought we'd have other topics to have to chat about, but we'll definitely touch it a bit. Unless there's any other question, I will allow Claire to go take some water. We've made her speak a lot, but we thank you so much for making time, and we hope to encourage everyone in the diaspora to take up this opportunity and have their names, because it saves us a lot of trouble. Thank you so much, Claire. Francis, you want to say something? Albert, can I let Claire go?
Absolutely. Just to thank her. Thank you, Claire. I mean, a lot of good information on this, and I appreciate you being here and giving this valuable information. And I hope to see you when you come to DC. Thank you.
Yes, I look forward to, and then she can go ahead. We are disseminating information to Ugandans, not to which party they belong to. So yes, if you think you have a forum where you want us to say this very message, we are saying it to the extent that they're Ugandans and it eases their life and access to service. Yes. So she'll share with you my telephone number. We can be in touch, and then my ex could DM me. I'm happy to speak to anybody to the extent that they're Ugandan and identity is their rights. Yes.
All right. Okay, thank you, Claire.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
Before we conclude this conversation, a number of things have been happening, and they affect us as Ugandans, but also as diaspora. One of the key areas is that Tanzania has barred foreign nationals from operating in a range of small and medium-sized enterprises, specifically targeting sectors traditionally dominated by Tanzanian citizens. And this raises very many questions, especially to do around protocols of the East African community, the policies, the domestic policies, they undermine regional integration. So if we could briefly hint on that, and then we look at the situation at hand, which is the 2026 general elections. Briefly, I'll start with you, Albert.
Believe it or not, I'm not a protectionist, but I do applaud Tanzania's move. And here is where I'm coming from. From the way the world is right now, we do need some protection measures for some of our businesses and some of our industry. We do. Even the US is doing it right now as we speak. So there is money that is floating out there. There are new industries that we have not partaken in. For example, some kid starts a company tomorrow, and then a month later, it's worth $15 billion. $15 billion could buy half of Toro. Okay, so I don't want that kid to come and say, oh, no, since everything is up for sale, whoever wants to start an industry, whoever wants to buy this land, whether they want to do farming or whether they want to just use it as a game park, that they're allowed to. That is unfair. That is unfair. We have traditional, historical disadvantages that we're not at a level where we can compete globally with everybody, every rich person out there. So if Tanzania says, oh, yeah, whoever has money can come in. Yeah, if 5-6 billionaires could come and decide to buy half of Tanzania, I don't think that should be acceptable. So until to give room for some of these small local industries to grow, you have to think of some protection measures. Are there simpler ways to do this? Are there other ways, like maybe partnerships and limits on investments? They can do that, but the idea itself, I'm not opposed to it. Then on the other question about Uganda and the politics and all that, yes, you guys are in that silly season again. And sadly, I call it silly, but sadly, people are going to lose a whole bulb. People are going to lose their lives. People are going to lose their freedom because that's what it is. That's what it is.
Albert, just to cut you short, I want to come to that. And I worry that it has gotten to that point of it being a silly season, unfortunately. But we shall get to that just briefly. Francis, could you quickly comment on the developments done in in Tanzania, as Samia Suluhu Hassan and her government come together to say no, 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 not anymore. We are banning all foreigners operating small businesses.
Thank you, Lynn, and other fellow panelists. I, for one, I would say that it is important to protect local industries. For example, it will help loss of domestic jobs. It will keep money at home because most of the people who have where they come from, they repatriate the profit. But it will also help in economic terms. It will help what we call balance of maybe payment and so on. And of course, at the helm of it, natural defense. But for the case of Tanzania and East Africa in particular, I say it is a wrong move. Why? Specifically, we have a problem of running into policies and ratifying treaties without a due process. By virtue of the fact that we agreed as East African community to have a common market and we appended our signature, it means that that law, now which is more of East African, supersedes the national interest. We'll be talking about the East African interest as a people. So now that boils down to our leaders. Did they understand what they were talking about when they talk about the East African community, or when they talk about integration? And if it is integration, did they mean it when they were talking about economic integration, or it was a paper integration? So to me, when it comes to the East African community, definitely Tanzania is on a wrong path. That is not part of what was accepted in as far as the treaty is concerned. But when it comes to national interest, that is what they are pursuing, then they are right. So, but is it the way how we should go if we are going to behave as East Africans? Absolutely not. So I think the leaders should sit and see what made Tanzania reach that decision and how can we best address it. Thank you.
Right, that's true. I quite agree with you because if we are claiming the spirit of the East African community integration, certainly that's not where we start from. But that is, we will expand on that conversation, I suppose, some other time. I want us to dive into the heat of the moment, and that is the current political atmosphere ahead of the 2026 general elections. And maybe to give us a hint, the NRM has issued its election guidelines ahead of the delegates conference. National Unity Platform is set to hold it's been having conventions outside the country, abroad. They're having a convention in Massachusetts. I had the fifth annual NUP Diaspora Convention from the 7th to 13th. And among very many issues to discuss, they are rallying support, diaspora support, and other donations to a tune of 9 billion. It is illegal, from what I have read, that political parties should not be soliciting for money, but that's a conversation we can continue having. They shouldn't be getting all these from monies from donations. That is one. Two, there is an interesting conversation about a coalition a possible coalition, well, that might easily front and that is coming to you, Francis. Your party and of course the People's Front for Freedom. They had a convention recently, that was the national convention on Tuesday, and they were looking at how to harmonize as a team and come together. Maybe a possibility of them having front to front one candidate. How that is going to happen, we are yet to see. Other parties are equally going around. The NRM, apart from issuing the party roadmap, there are a few other issues there in the party. People are asking the question, party like it's 1986, Ugandans want multi-party politics but maintain support for the NRM. So over to you, gentlemen. Should parties be soliciting for donations from foreigners? Okay, from abroad for I did not sound bad, but abroad, should they be soliciting? The law says they should not ask for more than, they shouldn't be getting more than 400 million in donations, but we are seeing National Unity Platform seeking 9 billion to support their electoral activities back home.
Thank you, Lynn. And here is actually we let Claire go. I want to reference on this. Ugandans have every right to participate in their country's processes, whether they want to stand for president, they're free to do so. So, and I'm quoting Claire, or at least paraphrasing what she said. That's where we get confused. And when they tell us that these things are not political, we get confused, because how can I get an ID and be told that I can participate in everything else except what matters, which is the governance of the country? If I can come and buy land and open a shop and make business in Kampala, I'm free to do that. But I'm not free to give $1 million. If I was a rich man here in the US, I'm not free to do that and have a say in the governance of my country. That's the problem. I do applaud NUP, and I've even said it to them, some of my friends who are NUP members. I've said, you know what? I actually appreciate what you're doing. You turn down the government money, taxpayers' money, so it's a good thing. They fall they don't want the taxpayers' money. They're going to raise their own money. What the government should be concerned about is where the money is coming from. If they are, again, similar to the Tanzanian question, if the money is coming from some billionaire American or whoever who has an interest of taking over Uganda, say, clearly the government should intervene. But if it's coming from Ugandans who are in Qatar, Dubai, cleaning and driving Uber and doing all that kind of stuff, if that's where it's coming from, Uganda the government should not limit that, because that's the freedom that they're telling us we have. You cannot allow us to participate in everything else except in the one thing that matters, that's at the center of everything. That's the way Uganda is governed. So on that one, I applaud no. The other thing I applaud them about is foregoing this shred of primaries. It's a party. If it has put an elder council that elects their flag bearers for different positions, that's their process. And I applaud that. That actually reduces violence. You saw, I think, about 8 people die, or was it more than 8, that died during the NRM primaries. Imagine that. 8 people lost their lives in a party's primary election process. Why are Ugandans dying? But obviously, the government has not really done much to address that. So I applaud parties like NUP and others who have their own internal processes that are more peaceful than the ruling party. I applaud that. I called this a silly season, and it is silly, but unfortunately, as we know, as day follows night, our fellow Ugandans are going to lose lives, others are going to lose freedoms, all for this charade that we call elections. I had proposed, and I think I said this in a prior show that you were not on, Lynn. I think we could actually have foregone all this and started a process of negotiations on power sharing and wealth sharing. I proposed that because at some point that will be the only thing that will redeem Uganda. The people who are in power and who are accumulating wealth left and right, in a very quick time frame, by the way, will have to sit down with the people who feel aggrieved the most. The others can join in, but they are actually players, those who feel aggrieved the most and those who have accumulated power and wealth within a very short time. They have to lead these conversations, and we do a government of national unity that spare Ugandans' blood, because ultimately that's where we will be. We can do it now, or we can do it after bloodbath. Either way, that's where we will have to be for Uganda to actually survive. So I have not, again, that's why I call this a silly season, because it's a sad, silly season where people should not be losing lives, but they are. The coffers of the government should not be emptied on an empty exercise that does not add value to the lives of Ugandans.
Right.
Money that should be used for service delivery, roads, hospitals, schools, is being literally wasted on a meaningless exercise when we all know what needs to be done.
Right.
I'll stop there.
All right, Albert. Now that you mentioned what has previously happened, the UPDF has issued tough warnings ahead of the 2026 elections, and they say we are ready to crush anyone who attempts to incite or engage in violence during the general elections. They're going to say it is the warning from the leadership of the UPDF to general public and politicians, and they're going to say. But this is in response particularly to pockets of violence reported during the recent NRM primaries, which Ofono Pondo has defended as saying NRM still remains Uganda's most credible political force. So that is the letters from the UPDF, and they're saying that the army's readiness is at hand to maintain peace and order throughout the electoral process. Francis.
Thank you, Lynn. And number one, I will first also agree with Albert that if we are all Ugandans, you don't have a right to stop me from financially donating to the ideology that I believe in that can move our country forward. And therefore, our ideologies are in our different political parties. The NRM is intertwined with the government. They use government resources to finance their party activity. Well, for us, we are trying, like, okay, how do we rally our members to be able to support the activities of the ideology or what they believe the trajectory the country should take. So to me, that should not be a problem, unless if they were thinking we're mobilizing against that rebel activity, which is not the case. So to me, I think that is wrong. Unless if indeed, as Albert has said, if they find that it is a billionaire who is funding. But this $1, $2 that I give in, I don't think there is no problem with that. That is, again, where the NRM goes wrong, to come and intervene even in matters that do not affect them. They can also mobilize. The NRM supporters have been fond of giving donation, and that one has not been an issue. Why is it that when for us we get alternative, or they thought that no, would depend on a donation from government, and once it is halted, and therefore it will crumble. So I think that it will take if we want to implement that. And since you asked also about the possibility of coalition, yes, those are our internal kind of approaches that we may discuss again, depending on the different ideological orientations that different political parties have. But negotiations have been going on, and coalitions have been made, and we believe something great will come out. I thought we would also talk about the roadmap that the Electoral Commission keeps changing. And the way how you see them changing it is in a way of preparing the incumbent. For example, how do you say that is it 2 weeks now, if not 3, that every intending candidate should have moved to around 98 districts of Uganda soliciting for signature? You give it a so short period that a person it is practically like impossible to do that. So I think that is again unfairness and preparation for rigging. Yes, I may understand maybe they want to kick out those political organizations that don't have the capacity, but I don't think it is a good gesture of multi-party democracy dispensation. Yes, I did read the UPDF documentation that they gave out on cracking down on people who are violent. But by the way, the UPDF became political some years back whenever they started terrorizing Dr. Kizza Besigye himself. If they are not partisan, what did they do during the primary elections of NRM when there was a rehearsal for terror? Because during the NRM primary elections, they were rehearsing their own terrorism tendencies of how they are going to inculcate fear in the electorate and ensure that they take over. To be specific, both because these people who are meeting terrorism on Ugandans in the NRM primaries, a good number of them are UPDF soldiers. And if I'm not mistaken, I take the NRM now, it has degenerated into gangs, if not warlords. Because you see, everyone, you still remember, for example, if I may again, you remember the exchange that was between Tumukunde and Kale Kaihura? Tumukunde was saying, if that is what he's doing, then we are going to bring a counterforce. Then I knew that, oh, Uganda has degenerated into warlords. If you remember also during CA, it is not something new. By then I was still young, but I was following politics very well. You remember what would happen in Ukunjiri and so on. There were typical warlords. It was like a no-go zone. So I'm forced to believe that the UPDF, what they are passing is not a message to all participants who are going to participate in the election, but it is a message to we who are bringing alternative ideologies of how the government should be run, that they don't want that ideology or they don't want us to participate and will be crushed. Because it is the NRM and UPDF, because and police, because all these are one, that always begin these violences.
Right.
You saw what happened in Mubende. The NUP are going to have their own meeting with their own people. And then you begin tear gassing them. They have not beaten anybody. They have not taken anything from anyone. And so on. So you saw how we are also tempting as political parties to move and do civic education and mobilization of our members. We are always met by force. And now Museveni was freely moving. He has now finished, after Museveni had finished the campaign, now he goes and picks nomination forms. Is that fair? So I think that the UPDF should be fair to either remain Uganda People's Defense Forces or to put it clear that they are NRM Defense Forces. And then we see how we work it out. Thank you.
Right. Francis, I asked a question that you ran away from smartly, and that is if your party and the other party with whom you're partnering, and that is the People's Front for Freedom, are likely to form a strong alliance, because we know that political parties across over the times, over years, have encountered mistrust. There's a lot of hesitation to build coalition, and this is a major problem, because research says that majority of citizens say the opposition presents a viable alternative vision, but trust and electoral support remain weak.
Lynn, like as I have said, I'm not the spokesperson of my party, but I'm saying, yes, we did sign collaborating with other, then even other collaboration agreements are coming. And whether they will materialize into coalition, that is yet to be determined. But we do agree to work on them where we find that we have common interests or our approaches are aligned. And that's what the collaboration is all about. But now, whether we are going to front maybe similar candidate or whatever, that is a discussion that is taking place. And if whenever time is ready for us to bring it to the public knowledge, then it is the party leadership that will come and pronounce that to the public. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Albert. What do you think we have a future with our political party, with the especially opposition political parties? The fact that they have the vision, the fact that they present a viable alternative, but there's a lot that still lacks. And when you talk about the silly season, I would expect that maybe there would be a change, that this opposition political parties could bring to the table. What do you think?
They can, and they are, by the way. These are things that are not going to be well read by some in some quarters. They might not even be uploaded. But I just mentioned a couple earlier on what NOP is doing. That's something new in Ugandan politics. Collecting money, going to the voters, foregoing free government money from iPad. Yeah, those are very new things, enterprising, forward thinking. Also, deciding that we're not going to do sham lining up behind people. Let's actually sit as party elders and pick the most viable candidates to represent us. All those are new things. So they might not give credit where credit is due, but those things, yes, they have a hopeful future, but it will have to come after a negotiated settlement of the two power centers that I talked about earlier. We will have to go through that. We can do it peacefully as the political parties are building, or we can do it after we've lost lives and we're in a bad state, but we'll have to do that. There's no way that the current, I understand you said that, I think it was the spokesperson for NRM saying that the NRM is the only credible party, but it's really hard to even imagine that in this kind of environment. Primaries, 8 people lost their lives. Where was the UPDF that is now putting out edicts? They were not ready now, they're going to be read in the future? My understanding is most of the bullets that flew came out of UPDF guns that killed people. So what are they talking about? Anyway, but I'll leave that there. To answer your question directly, yes, there are good things that are happening. And some of them, as much as powerful as the president and the government thinks they are, there are some things they can't control. For example, I do not believe that NOP leadership, especially the younger people that I know, some of them my friends who I know, I don't believe that they're stupid, that somehow they will have a bank account that the government can track and say, oh, now you've clicked 400 million, whatever is after that, we're going to confiscate. I don't believe so. I'm here. I have friends who ran in elections in Fort Portal. Some of them, I sent them money. I'm participating. I want good governance. Okay? Just because they were I don't belong to a political party, but yeah, in the primaries, I supported people for mayors, for MPs. My good friend the Douglas ran in Kasese municipality. He didn't go through, but we supported him. How is the government going to track that? Are they going to monitor now every $150 that go in any NUP candidate's account? They don't have the ability. So they can talk about all this bluster, but they don't have the ability. That cut is out once, and the people in NUP leadership know that. That's why they're continuing and doing these fundraisers. They have a million ways of moving the money to their candidates that they want to run, and they're going to be fully funded. I just think it's an exercise in futility. They disagree and they're continuing, and I applaud them because somebody has to hold the fort somehow. But I just think it's a waste of time, it's a waste of money, and it's going to be also a waste of lives. People are going to die. You know that. If they can die in an NRM primary, what do you think the general election picture will look like? People are going to die, and unnecessarily. So, with all due respect to whatever UPDF is putting out there, and it used to be one of those institutions that I used to hold in high regard, but they've kind of backslid. They are now a straight arm of the government. So that's what it is. They don't want to provide security for opposition parties. I think it was UPC who wanted to do a delegates conference, and this time they actually told them that we don't have enough manpower to safeguard the event. So, by the way, you should, since you're underground and they put these documents out there, so we are ready to protect the election, you should ask them. But that's contradictory to what the police put out about the UPC conference. They said they didn't have enough manpower. I've never even, they've used a whole bunch of excuses. I've never had that one. So what is the UPDF talking about? The same government is saying they have no manpower to safeguard delegates conference of a very small party. UPC is a very small party. So yeah, so that's contradictory. So I don't believe them, like I said. But of course, Uganda is our country. We hope this. We're hoping against hope, but hopefully we go through the silly season without a whole bunch of our fellow citizens losing their lives and their freedoms and their properties. It really doesn't have to be this violent. It really does not.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Lynn.
All right, I thank you. And we could have gone on and on, but we're past the time. We'll definitely continue this conversation at a later time. But Francis, conclusively in 1 minute, as we get into the heated season, as it hits even further, there's a lot of worry about security. There's a lot of worry about credibility. There's a lot of worry about safety as well, because I've seen somewhere that Ugandans are under surveillance as we get into the political season. So quickly, in your concluding remarks.
Well, thank you, Lynn. I'll first again appreciate the effort that NIRA is putting across. If it is for good intention to serve every Ugandan, that's a good way, but I hope that there will not be political interference in as far as the exercise is concerned, because that is always the answer that we have from the NRM. Then when it comes to the political season, yes, we know it is a tough season now that the monster NRM that is well known for terrorizing Ugandans finished rehearsals and now they are going to swing into action. We should not shy away. We will continue pushing for when we can have proper democratic dispensation. But I would also say that Ugandans should not shy away. They should support their political parties and ideologies financially. By the way, in 2021, NUP did not have money from government. They financed their campaigns. ANT, we financed our campaigns. Generally, the approach of even the people sending money locally to mobilize locally, ANT have been doing that. For us, even we are fond of doing meetings. That's why sometimes they may not, even when they think they will come with their tear gas, they will find we have our own way of doing it. It is NRM that is a master of violence, and we have been operating under that tough situation. I know 2026 is going to be much more tougher, but we have all been resilient in as far as putting our message forward and reaching out to the people in our own means that we can afford, and we'll continue to do that to see that Uganda is.
Thank you, Lynn. Thank you so much, Francis. And of course, I did say thank you to Claire for the very valuable information that she shared. On the surveillance, I really don't have much to say on that. We are kind of used to that. It's part of the course. They view any kind of criticism as being anti-government, and they've actually equated the Museveni government to Uganda. If you're speaking ill about this or raising this concern, you must not be loving Uganda. So we're kind of used to that. Some of us have faced that head on. Yeah, there are some new things. For example, there are some people who now trek to State House and then they get accolades from the president, and they even funded one way or another to make sure they counter bad information that comes out of the diaspora. But my advice has always been the same. We are frontline ambassadors of Uganda. How you treat us as a community is what we'll respond to. It's what we'll put out there. So it's actually in the best interest of the government to treat us as their sons and daughters and show us a stake, love us, and when we show the love back. But if you don't do that and instead concentrate on these campaigns of antagonizing us individually or collectively, as some communities have been antagonized, it actually does not serve the interest of Uganda in the long run. You have a community, instead of coming together and investing in Uganda, instead of putting the good name of the country out there, you have a community now in turmoil. You have a community of people in each other's throats, and that does not help. So it's a tired tactic that has not served the country. They say when you are in a hole and the intention is to get out of it, you stop digging. Uganda does not do that. The government in Kampala does not do that. They keep doing the same thing over and over, but expecting a different kind of result, a positive result. It's not going to work by antagonizing the very people that you want to attract. It's not going to work by terrorizing the very people you want to speak good about Uganda. So I hope they can change. I don't have much faith, but it's a hope. I mean, a guy can hope. Thank you, Lynn.
All right. Thank you so much, Albert and Francis. And definitely a huge thanks to Claire and everyone at NIRA for allowing Claire to speak to us today and giving us insights into our renewal of national IDs. I thank you very much. And definitely, Albert, I agree with you. We ought to be hopeful, and maybe someday our hope can pay off and we get great and amazing results. I wish you the very best. We'll catch you again next time. There's so much conversations that we need to have, especially during this period, and we will definitely bring so much more of these to you. Once again, thank you. We'll see you next time.